Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today is the first day that you can get your hands on the 2019 well-deserved reward. If you have played the game since before 2016, or at least if you registered your account before 2016, when you log in today, you will receive a Super Hellcat. Unfortunately, if you registered your account after the 1st of January 2016, then you're not going to be given this vehicle, and it looks like you're going to have to wait until your account is probably about 4 years old until you'll be able to get one of these. I believe this because on Wargaming's website, where they show you which reward you'll specifically get depending on how old your account is, you actually get the T52, which was last year's well-deserved reward if you registered your account in 2015. And that will be great for those of you out there who didn't quite manage to get the T52 last year, because if your account is now 4 years old, then that means that you're going to get both of these tanks. Anyway, let's focus on what's at hand here, and that is that today I'm going to be giving you a full review of the Super Hellcat. It's basically taking a Hellcat, jumping it up a tier to tier 7, and putting it in as a reward vehicle so you can use any of your American tank destroyer crews in this vehicle without penalty. So without further ado, let's see if the Super Hellcat can live up to its name. Today I'm going to be comparing it to the Tier 6 Standard Hellcat, the Tier 7 American Premium Tank Destroyer, the Scorpion, and the Standard Tier 7 American Turreted Tank Destroyer, the T-25-2. So immediately we notice that the Super Hellcat has better damage per minute than the regular Hellcat, but not quite as good as the Scorpion and the T-25-2. That's because it fires 7.5 rounds a minute. Next, we notice that the penetration on the 90mm main armament this vehicle has is actually better than the Hellcat, with its standard rounds at 167, but not nearly as good as the Scorpion, and just a bit under the T-25-2 with its 170mm of penetration. The real problem is for the Super Hellcat is that if you think that you're just going to be able to load the gold and dominate in this tank, that's just not the case, as the premium rounds on the other vehicles in this comparison just absolutely destroy this tank when it comes to loading the gold. The Super Hellcat's APCR rounds have 210mm of penetration, and they have worse shell velocity and worse penetration than the Hellcat did at Tier 6. And look at the heat rounds, 275mm of penetration heat rounds that the Scorpion has, with 1,219 meters a second shell velocity, and 258mm of APCR on the T-52, again with 1,290 meters shell velocity. This vehicle really lacks decent premium ammunition, so if you're expecting this to be a tank where you can load the gold and be successful, that's not going to be the case. And when this thing meets tier 8 and even tier 9 tanks, it really will struggle unless it uses mobility to be able to outflank them. Another thing that really does suck about this vehicle is the ammo capacity. 30 rounds kind of worked when you're on the Hellcat at tier 6, but really with 7,200 potential damage, you kind of feel a bit like a British light tank. Although, yeah, not really. No, the British light tanks are way worse with regards to their ammo loadouts. Alright, so now let's move on to gun handling. And the Super Hellcat is fairly similar to the Hellcat with some key differences. Aim time, fantastic. 1.7 seconds aim time. You really will be able to snap in your shots quickly in this tank, even though you can't use vertical stabilizers. 0.35 accuracy is also great. Not quite as good as the Scorpion, but better than the T-25-2. The movement dispersion values on this tank are really where this tank excels. 0.23 is so much better than the Hellcat. The Hellcat, when you move, its reticle blooms out, and then it takes ages for even its very good aim time to be able to reel it back into a position where you can fire, right? And also, the turret traverse dispersion on this vehicle is better than the Hellcat, although it is worse than the Scorpion, although the Scorpion doesn't actually have a turret. It's kind of just got a bit of gun traverse, but it is worse than the T-25-2. So if you've got yourself a T-25-2, you should pretty much know what the gun handling is going to be like on the Super Hellcat. So these dispersion values, while they're definitely not incredible, I think they're really good indeed. They're so much better than they are on the Hellcat, and as you're going to be seeing on the gameplay in just a second, you really can. So now let's move on to mobility, and the Super Hellcat is pretty darn good here. It goes backwards at 20. I cannot emphasize how important this is of an upgrade over the Hellcat. I can't stand the tier 6 Hellcat anymore because it just goes backwards too slow. What happens when you use your Hellcat to get into an aggressive position? You're sitting in a bush, you fire a shot, you get spotted, you need to pull back. You can't. You can only go at 12. But with the Super Hellcat at 20, you can definitely pull back way faster than the other competition here, and it just makes it so much more flexible. Also, for some reason, the Super Hellcat weighs 700 kilograms less than the regular Hellcat, so I definitely wouldn't recommend ramming your opponents, but that gives it a power to weight advantage because it has the same engine power. Combine this with better ground resistances, and this vehicle is more mobile. And furthermore, it's got better turret reverse speed at 20 degrees rather than 16. So it really is the mobility of the Super Hellcat which just performs here. It's pretty much better than all of these other 3 tanks in every single mobility statistic, and to be able to go forwards at 72 kilometers an hour with a 23 power to weight ratio, whoo, this thing is fast and furious. Alright, so now on to armor. Practically has none. Sometimes you're going to be able to absorb a shell in the mantlet of the vehicle against lower tier tanks, but pretty much the most sad thing about the Super Hellcat is it's quite a large tank, and with 12 millimeters of protection, that means that everything is going to overmatch you. So don't side scrape in the Hellcat. Come around the corner aggressively, shoot your opponent and pull back, because all they have to do is hit anywhere on the side of your tank and they're going to be able to overmatch it. Now, the Super Hellcat has a good old slug of hit points, 800, which is a nice meaty upgrade over the regular Hellcat. This means, for example, that when you have an ISU-152 on the enemy team, he's not going to one-shot you more than maybe about 1 out of 3 times, whereas with the Hellcat, it was guaranteed that you were going to get taken out. And also, some large caliber high explosive rounds, as you would expect, on the regular Hellcat would just completely dominate you, or you would get killed by a single penetrating round from some artillery. The Super Hellcat can take a hit way better with those 800 hit points, and it can keep you in the game longer. Alright, so finally, let's talk about the view range. 370 meters means this tank's right on the cusp of when I would recommend actually using coated optics. You could probably get away with using coated optics on this tank, but I do feel that with binoculars, you can get up to hyper view range levels of 500 and really cut through the enemy's camo and dominate your long distance vision work, which is where I've found that I've had most success in this tank. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, let's jump into the gameplay and see what it's all about. Yeah, so if you're wondering why the Offspring are inside my Super Hellcat, that's because I was sitting there thinking, what kind of a crew do I want to use in this vehicle? I could obviously use a T-67 crew inside this tank, but the T-67 crew I don't believe has a radio operator, and so you have awkward competition for the commander of whether the commander should use recon or situational awareness. Then I was thinking, do I want to use my Hellcat crew inside this tank because they work perfectly? And then I was sitting there thinking, I hate the regular Hellcat since Wargaming nerfed it all of those years ago. And that's exactly why they brought it back into the game at tier 7, because it can be just as good as it used to be, but obviously now being a higher tier. So then I was sitting there thinking, do I want to put my T110E4 crew in here or my T110E3 crew in here? And I realized I can't do that either because both of those tanks have got 2 loaders and no dedicated radio operator, and so the commander will never be fully efficient. So I found the one tank that would do the business for me, and that was the T30, ladies and gents. The T30 crew works perfectly in here. Dedicated radio operator, only one of the loaders will make it inside the tank though. The commander can have recon, while the radio operator has situational awareness, and you can really maximize out the view range of this tank. And so I had a spare Offspring crew laying around from purchasing one of the vehicles, and then Wargaming gave me one of the vehicles as well. So I decided to get a new T30 crew going because I've been really enjoying playing that tank recently. Alright, so we've managed to use the speed of the Hellcat to race into position. And we spotted out the IS, we punished the IS a couple of times, we bounced a standard round there off the lower plate of the Tiger II, and now I've got a premium round, and I'm thinking, do I want to shoot this guy in the track? And then I think, nah, I'm just going to go for the hull, because if I go for his track, maybe I can lock him down, but to all intents and purposes, he just uses his repair kit on his tracks and pulls back around the corner for no damage, so I'd rather do the 240. And I actually didn't pull back there, because I was quite sure that with the camo net on this tank, and the fact that I've got about 15% camo while firing with that camo net activated, that there's a good chance that VK wouldn't be able to spot me. If the VK has binoculars or coated optics, possibly, but, you know, considering it's a tier 6 German light tank, not all that many tier 6 German light tanks have got really good view range. Alright, so once again, I'm going to use the aggressive speed of the Hellcat to race into position, and the Chiri's going to manage to tap me a couple of times. And I wanted to use this position to stop the enemies from going through the world, apparently. No, from being able to fall back easily. From here, I can stop the Chiri and the Progetto, who was alive at the time, from being able to skulk around here. And also from this position, I can get shots if the enemies try to fall back around here. As well as also just sitting in these bushes and providing good view range up here. If anybody tries to come up here and fire, I'll spot them there. And I'll spot anybody who maybe comes around the corner aggressively. And so this is what the Hellcat is all about. It's about using the mobility of the tank to be able to rush forwards, set up a line of fire, and then use its mobility to try and poke holes in your opponent's lines. Now, I've actually got really bad tunnel vision here. My sixth sense goes off before I figure out that the VK's above me. That was actually really poor play. It means that I miss out a kill on the VK2801. Oh well, not a disaster. At least nobody managed to do any damage to me, and I'm quite lucky because it looks like that Super Hellcat came back into the bush at the J6 area to put a round into me. Just look at the mobility of this vehicle and look how steady the reticle goes when we're moving. It's just aim time. Beautiful aim time. I love it. I love it. It's not so much the aim time, because obviously the aim time is the same on this tank and it's the same on the T25 too. It's the dispersion values. The fact that even when you're driving at full speed at 60 kilometers an hour, at 70 kilometers an hour, your reticle doesn't pineapple out like it does on the Hellcat. And also, the fact that you can use one of your very experienced crews, either from the T67. I blind fire up into that bush, but unfortunately the shell misses. That would have been a good kill, and it would have saved me my gun and 259 hit points. Luckily, I'm able to react faster than they are to be able to put the subsequent shot in to shut them down before they take me out of the game. So by being able to use an experienced crew inside this vehicle, it just makes it feel so much better. I've got things like snapshot. I might even have things like clutch braking to improve the traverse speed of the vehicle. Combine that with brothers in arms, and if you're willing to use cola as a premium consumable on this tank, it really does start to feel truly super. And there's nothing quite like having reward tanks for feeling special. It's not a premium tank. Let me clarify that. If you were hoping that this was going to be a tier 7 premium tank that Wargaming gave you for free, no. As we're going to see in the post-game stats with the amount of credits this tank makes, that's simply not going to be the case. So I'm going to fire a standard round here through the lower plate of the Tiger II, narrowly avoiding the Hummel from above. And now we're going to load a gold round to hopefully be able to penetrate his lower plate again. We're going to pull back around the corner. And this is where this tank is just lovely. It's the reverse speed, boys and girls. I can poke finally again. And that's what was so good about the old school Hellcat with its reverse speed. You could pull backwards at a much faster speed, get yourself out of harm's way, and that's what it's all about. I love the Hellcat being reactive. But look at this. Don't be a noob like me. I actually stopped turning my hull there and then purely relied on the traverse speed of the tank. Don't do that. Don't be a potato like me. Make sure that you turn the hull as well as the turret. And actually now, he fires one, I fire one, and I'm hoping that the fact that I've got brothers in arms and cola is going to mean that I'm going to be able to reload faster than him. And he was stunned as well, and he still got the shot in. Wow, that guy must have a very good crew as well. He manages to shut me down at the end of the game, but still, a very strong result for the Super Hellcat. 4K combined in just under 6 minutes. It's a great result for a tier 7 TD. Just before we jump into some more gameplay, I want to give a very quick announcement, something that I've been meaning to do this week, but there's been so much content to release that I haven't had a chance to do my own dedicated video. And that is that this Saturday, the 30th of November, I'm going to be once again getting out on the battlefield with my good buddy Jingles. So come along on Twitch TV/QuickyBaby this Saturday from 5 o'clock UK time onwards. And we're going to be giving away, I don't know what it is, 10, 15, 20,000 one-day TOG rentals, and then playing TOGs with all of you in the community. So if you've ever wanted to have an opportunity to play with me and Jingles, either on our team or even against us, we're going to be doing that, and we're going to TOG you out to be able to do so as well. And I just can't wait to play with Jingles for the first time in 3 years. It's going to be incredible. Anyway, back to the Super Hellcat review. So now I'm rolling out on Stajanki in the worst possible matchmaking. Well, I guess not the worst. There could be artillery on the enemy team, right? But there are 4 tier 9s and a bunch of tier 8s that we're going to have to deal with. And a lot of Super Hellcats as well. And these kind of tanks are kind of counters for each other. You don't want to have too many Super Hellcats on your team or the enemy team, because everybody's trying to rush for the same position to be able to spot the opponents, to try and dominate those early aggressive locations. But if you can manage to win the fight for those early aggressive locations, then the Super Hellcat can just be so influential, as we're going to see in this replay. Alright, so what do I want to do? Well, I want to try and push this flank. I want to try and get up into these bushes, and I got the camera rating to be able to do so. Look at this. Yeah, I honestly thought that I would be spotted there by the T-30, and I wasn't. I was thinking that when the Batchat shot the wall down that maybe he would allow the T-30 to spot me as well. It's not the case. I get forwards, I activate my binoculars, I don't spot anything, so I continue to go forwards. This is what you want to do. It's like dipping your toes into the bath. You're kind of like figuring out, is the bath ready yet? And every time you stop and you activate your binoculars and your camo net, you can just go a little bit further forwards and a little bit further forwards, and then eventually you're going to start to really poke some vision against your opponents. Look at that, spotting that IS-6 pretty much at max range there. My tanks aren't really going to do much against him, but hopefully we can do something against this Leopard prototype. Look at this, that's a Leopard prototype. I pretty much spotted him at 400 meters with the binoculars on this tank. And now he's on low health. You know what? Why don't we pick up our first kill? That sounds like a good thing to do against a tank 2 tiers higher than us, right? Nice value play there. And again, we don't get spotted. All right, so I'm going to make a bit of a mistake here. I'm going to think, like, should I stop or should I go? But luckily, as the T-30 missed me, and he could have one-shot me if he'd managed to, we actually managed to just get forwards into position. And from here, I'm a little bit worried about getting engaged, maybe possibly over here or possibly over here. But as the shots haven't managed to arrive yet, I'm actually feeling fairly confident about this position. So I'm going to poke up, going to go and get some more vision, and I'm going to think, can I really shoot from here? Probably can, but it's a bit risky, right? If I get spotted, maybe the enemy team have now advanced to this location. Or maybe they can shoot me from here, or maybe they could even shoot me from over here. So I decided, if I fire there, to all intents and purposes, I'm going to get taken out. And when you're in a vehicle which has not the highest amount of hit points, especially in a matchup like this, and absolutely no armor to be able to take a hit, you've got to be a little bit more sneaky. That's what the Hellcat is all about. So we're going to use our speed, we're going to use our camo rating to actually go into a bit of a funky position against our opponents. And from here, whoa, this is where you want to be, right? Put one round into the T-30, going to put another round into the side of the air. Oh, actually, we don't quite manage to hit his side. Bit of a poor aim there by me, but the shell did go to the right as well. I was kind of aiming for the tracks to try and lock him down in place. All right, so ladies and gents, now I'm actually going to fast forward the replay here. We're going to see something really horrific. That's 2 premium rounds fired, 3 premium rounds for 1 pen, 4 premium rounds for 1 pen, 5 premium rounds for 1 pen. What? Okay, so 6 premium rounds and 2 pens against a flat front plate of the Tier 8 Polish heavy tank. So that's definitely not great. That shows you just how bad the premium penetration is on this tank. So I've decided instead to advance forwards to try and change my position, where hopefully I can make use of the standard rounds that this vehicle has. And there you go, that's where I want to be. Just, I feel a little bit risky here, you know? I feel like I've had to get myself a little bit too far forwards. But I guess you do have to just expose yourself in the Super Hellcat to be able to penetrate, because even your premium rounds, they just can't manage to go through the front of a lot of Tier 8 and Tier 9 tanks. And so this wouldn't have been a fair review if I didn't show you that. I could have very easily brushed over that. No, this tank has horrific premium penetration, and when you do get yourself into a bad matchup, you have to use all of your mobility, you have to use all of your view range, you have to use all of your knowledge of the weak points of the enemy tanks and steady aim to be able to do any kind of damage. And so I think this is actually probably quite a good free-to-play tank. Not because it has great penetration on its standard rounds, but because the vehicle just has so many different aspects that can allow you to still be effective without just dabbing the 2 key and firing at the front of enemy vehicles like many tank destroyers can and will do. This is a good moment. Off with his head, boys and girls. 567 damage dealt to the LTG who was burning. I guess the burn limited his ammo rack or weakened his ammo rack, and we were able to finish it off. We pick up our 4th kill on the Hellcat. Will we get our 5th kill? Not quite, but that, once again, is a decent, fast, frenetic round for the Hellcat. And every time I played this tank, look, not all the games went as well as the 2 that I'm featuring in the tank review today. They definitely didn't. There were a few which were very ugly. But hopefully so far I'm showing you that if you use the tank as a fast, aggressive recon vehicle, and you think of it more as a light tank that also has a 90mm main armament better than pretty much all of the other Tier 7 light tanks out there, yeah, this vehicle could be pretty darn gnarly. Alright, triple helping of gameplay, boys and girls, today for this tank review. And as you can see, I was actually AFK for the first 5 seconds of the battle. Yeah, when I'm not streaming, I don't feel like I'm that active At least at the start of the battle, I'm usually off checking things, right? It's a little bit guilty there. And it's actually a really bad play to be AFK at the start of this game. Do you know why? Because where do I want to go? Hopefully you don't have to be rocket scientists to figure out where I want to go. That's right. So I want to go up to the lighthouse. I'm going to try and make my way on top of the hill. And when you're AFK for the first 5 seconds of the battle, that means you have to expose yourself all the more to your opponents. That's not going to be good. Interestingly enough, I'm actually faster than the Super Hellcat in front of us. I wonder if that's anything to do with the ground resistances or maybe just the amount of crew skills that I have inside the tank. Maybe they're playing it with a fairly fresh crew. Who knows? Anyway, we're going to stop. We're going to snapshot at the T-34-100. I'm not going to take a hit in return. And because the enemies have already fired at the tank in front of us, I'm just going to hope that we don't make a fail here. And I actually do. What an idiot I am for wedging my tracks into that rock there, and that could have been a very ugly game, right? Luckily, it wasn't. And now I want to show you that the Super Hellcat, with having the mobility to make the aggressive play, and once you get up onto a hill like this, it's just absolutely phenomenal. Well, not so much if you're like that Super Hellcat and you manage to get spotted out. Definitely take concealment instead of repairs on this tank. If you're training up a fresh crew, take concealment. You heard it here first. Don't worry about using coated optics. Don't worry about recon and situational awareness as your first skills. Binoculars can compensate for poor view range in a tank. You don't need to have brothers in arms. You don't need to have cola on the vehicle to be successful. It definitely helps. I'm not going to try and say it doesn't, but binoculars will make up for the view range that this tank does not have initially without premium consumables, brothers in arms, situational awareness, and recon. So the concealment, however, you can't make up for unless you're using a concealment directive, I guess, which, unless you've got a load of them in the bank, and I know that I do, but I don't really even use them, it might be an idea while you're still training up the crew, at least for the first few battles. Alright, so now we've made our way on top of the hill. I'm just wondering why we're not getting shots down onto this progetto. And this is exactly where you want to be in a Super Hellcat, right? Up on top of the hill. You know, you've got eyes absolutely everywhere. I'm packing over 500 meters view range in this tank, so I'm definitely going to be able to spot my opponents. And I also, with a camo net, retain 15% of my camo rating when I'm firing in this tank as well, which is really gnarly indeed. So actually think about pulling back there. I was worried that the Super Hellcat or the Progetto was going to be able to spot us. You'll see that I wait for my camo net to get activated. That means that I don't get spotted. Great stuff. So now we're going to see that there's an IS in the corner. I'm thinking, how can I manage to take out this IS without getting shot by him in return? And I actually make a real bad misplay here. You'll notice that I'm not using a fire extinguisher. I've also got damaged fuel tanks. So if my fuel tanks get hit again, I burn. So what I'm actually going to figure out is that I should probably repair my fuel tanks, and I wish I'd done it earlier. I'm going to wait for my camo net to activate, and I'm going to shoot this IS. And I'm hoping he doesn't actually manage to spot me through the tree, but it looks like he actually does. Nevertheless, with a decent rate of fire, I'm going to lock him in place with my track, and I'm going to pull back. I nearly got hit in the back there by the Super Hellcat, but I just wanted to put a second bit of punishment against the IS. So now I'm going to try and find another position that I can use to be able to engage the IS. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to knock down this tree. I'm going to knock down this tree, and then I'm going to go into the bush and going to see exactly where he's aiming. Now I'm going to wait for my sixth sense to go off. It doesn't go off, which means that he's not actually spotting me. So I'm going to wedge my tank just enough over to use that 10 degrees of gun depression very carefully. And I'm going to aim for the back of his tank where his fuel tanks are. And I'm going to repair my fuel tanks in case he hits me and damages my fuel tanks. And oh, of course, he snapshots me and he hits my engine, which is rather awkward, but we don't actually lose any DPM at all. So I put a couple of rounds into him. I'm hopefully going to finish him off with this shot. He's not even aiming at us, so I think I can pull back in time. And there you go. That makes up for the 2 low rolls against him. And now up to 1,700 damage. Yeah, I think you can see how this battle's going, boys and girls. It's definitely not going very well. But what I wanted to show you in this battle is that this tank, you've just got so many opportunities in this vehicle to really make some bold plays. It just feels right. It feels as if the Super Hellcat is indeed super. I honestly feel that I would rather play this tank at tier 7 than having to play the Hellcat at tier 6. When Wargaming nerfed the Hellcat to a point where the vehicle was no longer broken, overpowered, whatever you want to call it, they destroyed the whole feeling, the whole soul of the Hellcat. It became a vehicle that I would never want to play anymore. And I think that this is just a wonderful gift from Wargaming at the end of the year. to make the Hellcat Super again. And look, this isn't the new E25 of Tier 7. It's not now the most overpowered tank at Tier 7. If you're expecting to get this thing and to be able to waltz through all of your rounds and completely dominate, well, this is obviously going to be bad news for you. However, if you enjoyed the Super Hellcat back in the day, or even if you didn't and you never played the vehicle back then, but you've always wondered what a fast, frenetic pace of gameplay with a decent 90mm would feel like, I've had a lot of fun playing this tank today. I always feel like at least I have a chance, or even if I'm not able to influence the battle to be a victory, I still kind of have fun just playing the tank anyway. It's not like other tank destroyers where you have to just sit at the back and camp. You can play it aggressively. You can take the fight to the enemy team. So our first game on El Haloof was a Confederate medal and a high caliber for the 2,779 damage that we dealt. This was 1,429 damage upon detecting, and because we didn't fire too many premium rounds this game, we made a 31,000 credit profit. In the next game, we didn't get any battle hero medals, but it was still a decent result, and this was more about highlighting just the premium rounds on this tank. I just wasted 35,000 credits on ammunition, and I didn't even really do all that much damage in that battle. And what we finished on top of experience and damage in the worst possible matchmaking that this vehicle had, really wanted to highlight that if you're expecting this tank to be a classic tank destroyer where you can just sit at the back and YOLO rounds at your opponents, it's definitely not going to be the one for you. This tank is for some aggressive player who's maybe more accustomed to light tanks or even the faster medium tanks, but wants to have tank destroyer gun-like capacity. In the games that I played today in the Super Hellcat, I haven't had so much fun playing the Hellcat kind of style since the vehicle was nerfed. And of course, it had to be nerfed at Tier 6 because the vehicle was crazy OP. It was basically like this tank, but used to be at Tier 6, right? So it's a good thing that Wargaming nerfed it back then, but it's an even better thing that Wargaming have brought it back at Tier 7 for the community to enjoy and to give us what they're calling a well-deserved reward. Well, Wargaming, once again, props to you. This is a really cool gift tank. It's balanced. It's so much better than all of those old Tier 3 garbage. Huge respect to you for giving something that is actually really fun and also, I feel, very balanced within the game. I don't think anyone's going to have any problems with there being Super Hellcats in their games, which is remarkable considering that the vehicle's all still, at least for me, fun to play. So ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this triple dose helping of gameplay. If you did, give the video a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Just a reminder that this Saturday, the 30th of November, it's going to be the World of Tanks event of the year on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. Come and get yourself a TOG and play with me and Jingles. Enough said, right? And as always, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon.